dictate to the political sphere or to the cultural sphere. Well, what do we have in public education? We have the corporate, political elites linked together, completely suppressing the cultural sphere. You, as a teacher in a public school, you don't do what comes forth out of your own creativity and your own initiative, your own loving presence to the children. You are, I mean, you try, but you are dictated to by the social, economic, political elites. And according to Steiner's model, that's a prescription for an unhealthy society. And I think he's right. So my vision of the ideal society is where we start to appreciate that. We say educators, like artists and professors and other creative people, you are free from political and economic interference. Go do your thing. Society will provide for you to do your creative work, because that's what keeps our society vital, but we're not going to tie strings onto it. So this whole thing about accountability is going to look much different. And the fifth principle, I just come back to holism. I can't seem to get rid of it, but I call it a holistic or an integral perspective. And again, I'm not trying to enshrine holism as a new religion. I'm just saying, let's keep in mind the wholeness of it all, the layers and layers of meaning, the fact that everything is connected. Let's keep that in mind as we go about our business and whatever we're doing, and we'll do things differently. Okay, so what happens if you tie all these principles together? I think then you have the foundation for a really free society and a free educational culture. The problem is if you don't adopt all of these principles, you just pick and choose, it gets imbalanced. So you could say that the strongly conservative people are talking about privatizing education, right? That we can't trust the public schools, the teachers' unions are ruining everything, right? Let's privatize, let's have vouchers. I don't say that they're wrong about that, right? But I say they've only got a piece of it. If you have that privatization, which would be, which of those five principles? That'd be the decentralizing of authority, right? If you just take that and you're a libertarian, right-wing kind of thinker, and you miss out on balance, and you miss out on holistic thinking, and you miss out on, what was the first one? On spirituality, or respect for the inner nature of the person, then what kind of society is that? If all we have is, okay, go for it, everybody just go. You're going to have educational entrepreneurs. You'll have mixed schools, franchises. You'll have a capitalistic society that's still just as competitive, still just as unequal, but everybody will be able to choose whatever education they want as long as they can pay for it. And to me, that's not the ideal. So I want to combine that sense of freedom with a sense of balance and social responsibility. I think I've covered everything I said I would. So how about some questions or feedback or comments? Who's in charge here? How much time do we have?
I'm sort of in charge. 10 minutes.
10?
10 minutes and then we'll go and we'll...
Did I talk that long?
Well, 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll go and we'll, have a chance to get something to drink, and then we'll come into our groups to really be able to look at some of the concepts. And really
Okay. Yes, way back.
So are you optimistic that in the future public education can incorporate a holistic worldview? Or are you advocating more grassroots, smaller, private, and then what do you think?
I don't know if I'm optimistic or not, because I really don't know how it's going to play out. But I just know that the system we have now, based on the cultural foundations that it is not going to change significantly. So in this culture, we need these alternatives. We need these grassroots alternatives. If we can move to a whole culture that's that is based on these principles or something like them. I'm not saying I have all the answers, just most of them. But some, we go in that direction somehow. Then what we call public education, I think could be transformed. We might have a public education system, but it wouldn't look like it does now, because the cultural, social, political, philosophical roots of it would be very different.
I'm a little bit confused about the Steiner's threefold idea. Like, I love the sound of it, but
Yeah.
then when you were going into describing how a teacher could teach, I don't know how they could be free completely from the economic, or, I mean, even in a private school, you have the parents having a lot of say in how they want it. They'll either pay tuition or they won't if you're teaching a certain. I'm not sure I completely grasp it. I was wondering.
The hard thing in all of this is the only way we can look at it now is in the culture we're in now. And you have to imagine, if this were a culture that weren't so fixated on economic success and getting ahead and all that stuff, parents wouldn't be putting the same kind of pressure on. Maybe we wouldn't be charging tuition. Maybe all education would be free. I think that was Steiner's ideal, that the economic realm of society would provide education equally for everybody. So the economic pressure that is just so endemic now, it just goes away. That's awfully idealistic to think that, but that's what we have to try to imagine, that the whole basis for this is going to shift. Does that help at all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the more, right now, the standards of teaching are pretty oppressive, I feel like, within education. So I would like to see that freed up, but I feel like the idea that you're describing almost seems to be the other extreme, because then one person, what comes forth naturally from them, I don't know. Somewhere in between, I feel like there has to be something in between.
Well, and so the question to ask is, where does that come from?
Right.
Who establishes that? And I mean, there's no answer to that, but how you answer that, it will tell
I
you.
feel like how we seem to answer it is through community, so.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just curious about how you were dissecting that, that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Kind of cleared it up.
All right, good. Yes, Jerry.
Well, I think what we need is much, much stronger standards, a much narrower curriculum.
If you don't know this guy, you won't know how funny that he's being.
And then, when everybody realizes how completely stupid that is, everyone will just have to start little schools like Wellspring. And actually, they're kind of playing into our hands because they're making it worse and worse and worse. It's really interesting. I want to make one observation about this, just an overview here. This particular event is part of something that's kind of a new phenomenon. Some of the member schools that are alternative schools, like Brooklyn Free School and this one, and Voyager, that's further, are doing their own conferences like this. And that's a new phenomenon, and I want to compliment the people who organize this. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you know of a society anywhere in the world, a state, an area that's actually getting it right? Is there any groups there, or?
Let's see. One way to
hear about,
one way to answer that is to say that it's going the other direction. That the globalization is bringing our culture everywhere else, and school systems are trying to imitate us. They're becoming more standardized in most places. But let's see, what are the exceptions? In Finland, a lot of people talk about the school. I don't know if you want to add anything to this, but the schools in Finland get talked about. In the country of Bhutan, way up in the Himalayas, I don't fully understand it, but they've thrown out the idea of gross national product, and they want to talk about gross national happiness. And they've developed, they're very serious about this. They've developed a whole methodology for how are we going to measure happiness in our population. And I know that in December, they actually called together an international conference out